Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tom from Rockland Web. I'm here on behalf of the Workforce Development Board of Rockland County. Thank you for attending today's third Small Business Friday Forum. We're going to be discussing the Payroll Protection Program today that has just been initiated by the Fed. And I have a few guests here today. We'll get right into our topics because we don't want to keep you away from your work. Obviously, many are working from home right now, but I guess as you quickly realized, that doesn't take away from our workload. In some cases, it even increases it. So we're going to try and keep this as concise as possible and give you the right information so that you can hit the ground running based on all of the things that have happened over the last several days. Notably, as I try to start every meeting, I hope that everybody is healthy and safe. We're going to be going through a few very difficult weeks, obviously, but as I say often, we will get through this together. We have a great community here in Rockland, and we only want to strengthen those bonds. And the Workforce Development Board of Rockland County is central in that effort on two fronts. First, to provide vital information about how things are going from the individual level. Employment is going to be a huge concern for at least several months. And on the flip side, providing small businesses with the information that they can use in order to maintain operations and business continuity. As I mentioned, the forum is sponsored by the Workforce Development Board. We also have the Chamber Alliance of Rockland, which is a group that has been able to connect all of the individual chambers within Rockland County. That's the North Rockland Chamber of Commerce, the Nanuet Chamber, Suffern, Sloatsburg, Nyack, Nanuet, New City, and they all participate in various efforts throughout the year. Our agenda is fairly simple. We'll just do quick introductions of our main speakers. We'll bring that up in a moment. Afterwards, we'll try to have a little bit of time for open discussion. As things change very quickly. I remember the first Friday forum that we did several weeks ago. I just left the floor open for people to talk about how things are going. And several people had indicated that they know that there's going to be tough times coming ahead. And several have provided tips on how they can pivot their businesses right then and there to accommodate working from home, working from remotely, and providing incentives to help those businesses and customers of those businesses to be able to maintain continuity. Those videos are available online. If you go to the Workforce Development Board website, I'll just bring that up really briefly. rocklandwork.org. Workforce Development Board of Rockland County, as I mentioned, central to this effort. And there's wonderful, wonderful resources on the site for individuals as well as employers, both who are affected directly by COVID-19. There's also a new link for unemployment insurance benefits information, so please tune into that. And the videos are available off of the news feed. We post them on YouTube as well as all over the various community groups within Rockland on Facebook. Initially what I'd like to do is I'd just like to introduce again Debra Thomas. She's the Executive Director of the Workforce Development Board of Rockland County. Deborah, would you like to say a few words and maybe provide some updates?
Thanks, Tom, and I bring greetings and welcome to all of you from the board and officers of the Workforce Development Board of Rockland County. We're so happy that we can be here and provide some support to this initiative. Particularly want to thank Tom for his support of the rocklandworks.org side. He's working daily with the staff to do those updates and to help us reach out and connect with all of you. We also want to thank the Chamber Alliance for allowing us to partner with you on this initiative to provide support for the small business Friday forums. We feel like this is really a great leap forward. We have a wonderful community, and whatever we can do to pull together. We're putting as much information as we can as we receive it from the federal government and or from the State Department of Labor out there. And I just wanted to add one little piece of information that I know many of us are working from home, but if your business has been affected and you have been loss of income and revenue, you are entitled to unemployment. So you want to follow through on that, because you are definitely encouraged to work and to generate revenue, but you also are entitled to compensation if you can demonstrate a loss of revenue. So you can do both. And this is an unusual circumstance, and I would encourage everyone to check that out. And if you are denied benefits from the state for unemployment benefits, then that opens up opportunities for you to secure some benefits from the federal government. So stay closely connected to those opportunities, and we'll be putting that out on the site so you'll be up to snuff on what's going on. So, and please reach out to us if there's anything we can do for you. The other point that I wanted to make is the structure of the funding for the Workforce Development Board is going to change for fiscal year 20. We haven't received our funding award yet, but there is going to be a greater emphasis on working with small business. So the Workforce Development Board typically gets a percentage of the overall grant that comes to a county, and that's how we run the board. So what additional resources that we're going to get this year, we're going to put into working with our business community and supporting you. So it will be very important for us to know what your needs are and how we can help you so that we can strengthen our relationship, and we look forward to doing that this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. And last night, and we're all working probably double what we usually do, but sat down yesterday to organize all of the information that you'd sent over to us. So I think I'm up to date, but if I fall behind, just send me a text message, and if there's something vital that we need to get on the website, just let me know.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, so our keynote speaker today is actually a friend of mine that I've known for almost 25 years, Aidan Hand. If you've ever gone into a local bank in the area and you needed some assistance, I could say that there's no person in the banking industry that I know of in Rockland County that has more experience, more professionalism, and more depth of knowledge. I can say that because I know him both on a personal and a professional level for many years. He's currently a member of 3 different chambers of commerce, actively involved: Sloatsburg, Suffern, and one other that I forget which one it was. I apologize, Aidan. He's currently a manager of a Key Bank branch. And as I mentioned, he has 20 plus years in the banking industry. And today he's going to be speaking about the new program that's come down from the federal government that I think that will be vital to many of us small businesses. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Aidan. Thanks for joining us today, Aidan.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for the nice introduction. So, you know, I think about some of the things that have been impacting us lately, and we have experienced quite a few firsts. I know that I have. For example, I never thought I'd see the day when my favorite bar would be closed, but sure enough, they have closed their doors. Rhodes Tavern, along with many other businesses considered non-essential, have had to close their doors, and it's had a terrible impact on the community and on the employees of those businesses. You know, in 20 years of banking, I never thought I'd see the day where I'd have to lock my lobby door and talk to customers through a locked door during business hours, but it's true, it's happening, and I have to explain to customers that they are welcome to use our drive up, and we are still here to service them, but at the moment we're not allowing people into the lobby. I never thought I'd see that day. I also never thought I'd see the day that as a banker I would be making loans where business owners potentially would not have to pay them back. But that day is here too. So we're experiencing a lot of firsts, and I want to talk to you today a little bit about the Paycheck Protection program, which is part of the legislation that was passed just this past Friday. $2 trillion package, $350 billion of which was dedicated specifically for this program. The heart and the spirit behind this program is designed to get people back to work, or at the very least, get them back on payroll and get them off of unemployment. So this program is an SBA guaranteed loan that's designed to help small businesses cover the cost of payroll expenses, group health care insurance coverage, rent, if they own their property, mortgage interest, utility payments, and even interest on other pre-existing debt obligations. The way a business can determine what their eligibility is as far as dollar amount is they do a look back period of about 12 months and they figure out what is my average monthly payroll expense. And whatever that number comes to, you multiply that by 2.5, and that is the dollar amount that they're eligible for. Payments are deferred for at least 6 months, possibly up to a year, meaning we won't ask you for a dime in repayment for at least a year. The best part of this program is that it's potentially forgivable. If you use the money for the right categories, and those categories are very specific, they are payroll, utilities, and rent. If you use the money for those categories, the amount that you use is the amount that you can calculate will be eligible for forgiveness, as long as 75% of that whole picture is payroll. Like I said before, this is designed to entice business owners to bring people back to work. And for places that are closed, even if they can't work, at least bring them back on payroll. And one of the ways it does that is it takes a comparative look at what was your FTE count, as in full-time equivalent, on February 15th, and your payroll expense versus those same numbers on June 30th. So in other words, if you have laid off employees subsequent to February 15th, it could negatively impact your forgivability and possibly prorate it downward. However, if you bring those people back and you rehire them at full pay, in other words, what they were making before, prior to June 30th, you have now reinstated your ability for potential full forgiveness on this program. Any amount that is not forgiven will be converted to a term loan after December 31st. I believe we'll be at a 2-year term, and we'll be at a ridiculously low interest rate. We're anticipating under 1%. So all around, this is a win for businesses. And again, it's designed to get people back to work and at the very least get them back on payroll. So Tom, I think you were showing my first slide.
Yeah,
so,
head back
okay.
over.
It's kind of blown up a little bit, but okay, good. So that's the definition of what's the Paycheck Protection Program. Are you able to zoom out so I can see the rest of that first page
Yes.
there? Okay, great. So this is an overall description of the plan, the definition, how do you calculate. By the way, the calculation of the loan amount is either that 2.5 times average payroll or $10 million. If your payroll average is greater than $10 million, I'm sorry, you're stuck with $10 million. But that's how the plan is going to work. What's next on the actually, Tom, if you can flip to that second set of slides, that would be great. Okay, so over here, again, we're talking about what the potential benefits are for small businesses. And again, the fact that it's potentially forgivable. Details continue to emerge. In fact, we're literally getting updates on this by the hour. We literally just got an update today that the SBA just gave us their guidelines on the parameters of what the application has to look like. Our technical teams are scrambling to get our application infrastructure in place so that we will be able to take digital applications probably as soon as this weekend. What will happen is we will be focusing on small businesses and sole proprietors first, but it's important to also know that independent contractors and self-employed individuals are also eligible, and they will be able to start submitting applications through us beginning on April 10th. It's also important to know that 1099 employees, they are eligible. And for solo operators, you know, who don't have much of a payroll budget, the money that you pay yourself is also eligible for this program. So there's a lot of great things. Now, Tom, if you flip to the second slide, business owners can get an idea of what documentation they should be prepared to provide. As you can see, we're recommending that you have copies of your recent 941s, which is your employer quarterlies, federal tax returns, and a breakdown of your payroll over the last 12 months, so you can kind of calculate that average payroll. That's pretty much the long and the short of it. But I made it my mission this weekend to become an expert at this for a couple of reasons. One, because I know it will help get the lifeblood of our economy rolling again, which is small business. And number two, because you know, I know that I can impact a lot of people because of this, and I want to help as many people as I can. So I guess I can open it up for any questions.
If anyone has any specific questions, you might be on mute. So I'm going to open up my chat here, and if somebody cannot voice their question, please let me know and I'll manually unmute you.
I see red microphones with slashes through them next to everybody's photo, so it looks like they are muted.
I can't tell if there's anyone specifically. Oh, here we go. So Julia, I'm gonna unmute your microphone.
Oh, Julia, I think I saw that. Yeah, that's a great question. There are limitations as you make your payroll calculations. There is a cap at 100,000. So if you have employees on your payroll who are over 100,000, you basically want to scale that back to 100 as you're making those calculations. Also, the employees must be working inside the United States. Oh, and one other limitation is that your company must have fewer than 500 employees. Outside of that, there's not a lot of restrictions.
Aidan, I have a quick question. So, and as you know, I employ 1099 workers. They should file independently for their part of this. It's Payroll Protection Program isn't applicable for me to apply for 1099 workers, I imagine.
Well, you as an employer of 1099 workers, you can factor their 1099 income into your payroll expenses. So the answer is you can use the income that you pay out your 1099 folks when you're making those calculations. I do know that independent contractors themselves can also be eligible to participate in the program.
More questions for Aidan on this? All right. Julia says thank you.
You're very welcome.
Just while we're waiting for the next, oh, I have a question from Gary. I believe it's Gary Raffa. One moment, please.
Are you able to unmute him?
Yeah, I'm looking to unmute him right now. I think I don't know if he has a microphone.
Oh, his little red muted microphone went away, so I think we might be able to hear Gary now.
Yeah, I just unmuted it. No, I don't have a question.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yep, there's another Gary in the group.
Ah, okay. Oh, here we go. Gary said, my wife is a dog walker that does not provide 1099, but they do not allow unemployment unless she has a 1099. Okay.
They do not allow unemployment. Okay. Well, that would be an unemployment question and not necessarily related to the Paycheck Protection Program. I do know that it's, well, based on my impressions of what I've learned so far, this is going to be liberally applied. The SBA wants to get as much money into as many business owners' hands as possible. It's not completely clear just yet what exactly is going to be needed in the way of documentation from solo operators and sole proprietors. However, and the reason really is because the SBA literally only provided their guidance today, and I haven't even been brought up to speed on exactly what will be required. I can tell you, however, that we'll have an online application that will be very user-friendly, and the application will help guide the business owner in what exactly will be required, and should enable them to also upload any required documents as part of the process.
I had mentioned before, I'm fairly versed on the 1099 side. So certainly find out, for those of you that work with 1099 individuals, and hopefully you've all sent out your 1099 forms that's supposed to be sent out to all of your 1099 workers by January 31st. So I'm sure that that'll be a documentation requirement, not just for you, but also for people that are looking to apply on their own as independent contractors. There's a wide variety of requirements for maintaining independent contractors when you do work. They have to use their own equipment. They have to make their own hours. You do not control them. You give them a project, or you give them a particular assignment, and then it's theirs. They work on it from beginning to end, and then they come back and they say the job's done, and you compensate them for their efforts. So,
Tom, I attended the SBA presentation this morning, and I took several screenshots of what they presented, but they said they're going to be changing the slides every minute of the day. So I think what we will do on our website, we'll put a link to the SBA site, and there is all kinds of information. They have several funding streams. Some of them are easily accessible. Some are for nonprofits. Some are for independent operations. So I think it would be very helpful for us to have that direct link. People can go to the website. They can get a sample template of what the banks are going to be looking for. And I think it's self-explanatory. And then they can go to their lenders and find out information. Some you apply for directly to the SBA. You don't go to a lender. So I think we'll put that up tonight, and people can go right to our site and go to that link for it.
Yes,
that'd be great.
That's actually a great point. Actually, Tom, if you can flip to that third slide, there's some great resources there that you might want to take reference there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and there is another program that business owners have been hearing a lot about. It's called the Economic Injury Disaster Relief Fund. A couple of the major differences between what I talked about today and that is, number one, that plan, the Economic Injury Disaster Fund, is not forgivable, at least not now, versus the Paycheck Protection Program, which is forgivable. The Economic Injury Disaster Relief Fund is currently under credit underwriting criteria, whereas the Paycheck Protection Program, they're not going to be checking credit. There is no need for collateral, and they won't even ask for a personal guarantee. The Economic Injury Disaster Fund will have to be applied directly online at the SBA website, not through banks. And the Paycheck Protection Program is the opposite. It is only through SBA lender banks and not through the SBA program. So those are a few differences between the two. You can apply for both, I am told, as long as you first apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Plan and then the Paycheck Protection Program subsequent to that. And the funds have to be used for separate purposes.
Right, and I believe the second one, they tell you how much money you're eligible for. You don't request a dollar amount. It's not based on a fixed figure.
Well, Paycheck Protection Program is specifically based on 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. So that, yes, it is specific in that sense.
Right, but the economic injury, you give them your information, and then they tell you what the allowable amount would be.
Yeah, that sounds right. The number that I've been hearing from a lot of business owners is $10,000.
Yeah, so, yeah. And they will give you the award, and you do not need to necessarily take it. So they were advising people to take a good look, see it, because not knowing what the future holds, you might want to apply for it. And then if you don't need it, you don't need to spend down those resources. So I
Sure.
like just what they said today. So everybody should just take a look, see, and see if it's something that you might be interested in.
And if I can add on, there's a finite amount of money in these programs. I just did a little quick calculations the other day. Let's say on an assumption that it's $350 billion is being allocated specifically to small business assistance. And even if you divide it by the lowest common denominator that we just talked about, the 10,000, we're talking about 35 million small businesses that can apply for this. But obviously, as you had all mentioned, that amount can go way up for businesses with high payroll requirements, high utility and such. So, I mean, I would turn it to you guys. Do you feel it's best to wait to apply or to apply it more rapidly?
Feedback I've been hearing is don't wait, because there is a finite amount of money in this budget. It's $350 billion bucks. It's difficult to say how fast that will go and what will happen when that dries up. So my recommendation is to go after it right away, sooner than later. One interesting thing to think about, though, is if you've laid people off, you may want to consider how soon you bring them back on board, because of the fact that when you are calculating your forgivability, you're looking into the future 8 weeks subsequent to receiving the money. And the money that you spend on payroll, utilities, and rent during that 8 weeks is what's going to ultimately be forgiven. And if all your people are laid off, your payroll expense is going to be minimal, whereas the idea is to bring them back on payroll to maximize your forgivability.
Any other final questions for either Aidan or Debbie? Just check the chat one more time, make sure I didn't miss anything. A message from Stephanie. If anyone uses a payroll company, they are working to get the proper reporting together, I imagine, for loan applications. Is that correct, Stephanie?
She'd have to.
Correct. I'm actually, just so you guys know, I'm also Aidan's wife, but I'm the HR director and controller for a very large dental company. And so I've been working with 2 separate payroll companies, ADP and Paychex, and they have in the last 2 days, and they're working all weekend long to get the proper reporting that's required, not only the 941s, but there are payroll reports to show the breakout of payroll and payroll expenses for each one of the companies. And they're both working very hard to make sure that they have the proper structure so the employees can request it and they'll have it as soon as possible. I just got it from my companies. I have 46 offices and I'm dealing with right now. So they are in the loop and they are working as fast as they can.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
I have to jump into another call, but it was good to see you guys.
You too. Okay, Gary had a question. How can we download these forms?
It'll be on our website tonight.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I want to thank again both Aidan and Debbie for providing some comprehensive information on this program. Again, and as Debbie mentioned, the details are being updated literally minute by minute, hour by hour. It'll be loaded up to the Workforce Development Board website. Again, that's located at rocklandwork.org. And we'll have, usually there's a pop-up window that comes up right away. So we should have some information directly on there where you can navigate to find that form information. So again, thank you, Aidan. I should also mention, just as a side note, I mentioned some other things about Aidan, but Aidan's also a very staunch and passionate proponent of saving money. You know, in good times, in bad times, he has always been very consistent about the concept of saving money for a rainy day. You know, rainy days are here. For those of us that have not, you know, saved adequately for this, and, you know, I'd say God willing, we'll be able to weather the storm. But, you know, consider as things get a little bit better, Aidan has some great advice online often about just saving moderate amounts of money. I remember, if I can bring this up very briefly, he talked about the jar concept, where you just start off one week, you just drop $1 in the jar. And then the next week you drop in $2. And the next week you drop in $3. And you do this consistently for an entire year up until you drop in, you know, it's a little bit more, but $52 at the end of a given week. Aidan, what's the final total on that jar concept?
I believe the number came out to $1,353. If you do it with your spouse, you have enough to go on a cruise.
Who wants to do that?
Oh, well, maybe not now.
Maybe not
No
that.
one's going on a cruise.
Yeah, good point. By the way, Tom, is it okay if I give out my contact info?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be posting it to the slide here. I have one, Aidan's contact info.
So, yeah, I'm happy to field any questions that anybody might have about this program. If I'll get right down into the weeds with you on it, and I can also help you in terms of what the process looks like and how to get started. So my direct line phone number at the office is 845-208-6040. That's 6040. And my email address is Aidan, AIDAN _ Hand, HAND, @keybank.com.
Wonderful. All right. And also one last thing, happy birthday. You celebrated your 34th birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to you.
Yes, the worst part of my birthday was having it on wing night, and my favorite bar was closed on wing night. But the best part was my wonderful wife made some fabulous homemade chicken wings to try and make up for it last night. So it was a great birthday. Didn't have a ton of people around to help celebrate, but that's okay. It was still a great evening.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. Oh, Gary has a question. What is your favorite bar?
Rhodes Tavern in Sloatsburg.
Mm-hmm.
It's also where my band plays most frequently.
Mm. Okay, so this is the time where we open it up to anybody that has any general questions about anything else. This is more where we could just talk about what's going on in our individual businesses, how we've adjusted over the course of time. It's, you know, maybe a little bit of I wouldn't call it direct therapy, but being able to talk as a community about the challenges that we may be facing over the next several weeks, or anything that we're encountering out in the field right now. It also helps us to refine our upcoming workshops. Just as a quick side note before we go into that, we're going to have our next meeting is going to be next Friday at 12:30 in the afternoon. And we should have the second part of our presentation about keeping the communication alive with your customers, especially at this vital time. So, you know, certainly tune in. And the reason why we created that presentation was for feedback that we got from the community initially, is what can we do? Is there anything that anybody wanted to bring up before we close out? I'm just looking at chat, or anybody can write in chat and message. If not, that's perfectly all right. I would also like to note one very important thing. As some of you know, I'm involved fairly deeply in the technology sector. We've been unbelievably busy. We're, you know, thankful for that, and you know, we don't want it to come as a result of bad times. But we are certainly working very hard to make sure that our clients are happy. Something that we did encounter over the course of the past week and a half. And it's ironic because we're using the platform literally right now. Zoom is not necessarily the most secure platform for your individual purposes. So I'm going to give you an example. The way that this came about is that we have a client that's in the healthcare industry. And he had contacted me and he had mentioned, you know, I'm thinking about using Zoom for online meetings. And he asked me about HIPAA compliance. So now the base Zoom platform is really set up to hold just general meetings about a variety of topics, but in a manner that's more public in its nature, which is wonderful, except that leaves it with several shortfalls that could affect you, possibly even legally, depending upon the type of information that you're transmitting over the platform. So as an example, in the healthcare industry, some of you know about something called HIPAA, which is a Healthcare Protection Act that was enacted in 1996. And it basically states that all individual health information has to be protected by the healthcare providers that are maintaining that information. And what this means is if you're using an open platform, such as Zoom, at least its base product, it doesn't necessarily give you all the privacy protections that are required by HIPAA. And again, this was something that was enacted almost 25 years ago. Certainly technology has changed. Probably legislation will be updated to reflect that. But if you're, and also we've heard of some things where, you know, my, someone very close to me is in a not-for-profit organization, and they got into a meeting where they were what's known as Zoom bombed. And that's where spammers and, let's say, malicious parties come in, use the chat and other tools in order to put malicious links in the Zoom meeting. You know, some that are, let's say, not suitable for work. I won't go into detail there. But definitely something that you don't want in a professionally run meeting. So I just want you to be, yes, go ahead, Debbie.
This morning, in the meeting that I was in with the SBA, it was sponsored by the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce. There were 1,000 participants, and it was Zoom bombed.
Mm-hmm.
And
I saw that.
The comments that came through were unbelievable. So they finally muted everyone, and the presentation continued. Then there was a woman that was on camera, and she must have forgotten that she was on screen. She was on camera, and she started to dye her hair. And everybody could watch her dye her hair in the middle of this presentation by the SBA. So we have to remember our behaviors when we're on camera as well. So it was interesting. Yes. It was interesting all around for me. It was my first Zoom bomb and my first hair experience on Zoom.
Yeah, there was a video that went viral about a week ago, and there was, you know, it was like a business meeting, and one of the people in the meeting got up, took her phone camera in the Zoom meeting, and went to the bathroom, and we'll leave it at that. But yeah, it was pretty wild.
What does it mean again to be Zoom bombed?
Yeah, it's called Zoom bombing. Basically, you know, hackers and spammers, they'll hop into a meeting, something like this, and they'll just take over by posting links and hopping on camera and just doing things that are, you know, not in the format of the meeting.
Right. And this morning, with 1,000 people on, there were racial comments, and there were many people that were making disparaging comments back and forth about the presenter, about the participants. And finally, they were able to just, you know, they were able to mute everyone. But many people dropped. They lost over 300 people in the conference because people just, you know, bailed. So it was a frightening experience. You know, it was really scary. But then it brightened up at the end when the lady started doing her hair. So it was very nice.
Something that we researched a little bit for the doctor that we had mentioned is GoToMeeting. And just as a disclaimer, we don't benefit from this. We're not affiliates or resellers of GoToMeeting or Zoom. I assure everyone here. GoToMeeting does have a base product that is HIPAA compliant. There's a huge page with all the individual capabilities of the HIPAA compliant version of GoToMeeting. If you look at the cost comparison, and Zoom does have an upgrade that allows you to have a HIPAA compliant version of Zoom, but it comes at a steeper cost. Let me just bring this up very briefly. Okay, so GoToMeeting's business platform lists at $16. If you scroll down and we look at the HIPAA ready version, professional and business versions of GoToMeeting are HIPAA ready. Now, just as a side note, HIPAA ready doesn't mean that it's 100% HIPAA compliant. You need to have a signed business assurance application. It's called a BAA. So you have to have that signed between you and GoToMeeting. And you also have to have your own safeguards. But the bottom line is GoToMeeting seems to be a more secure platform. We use both in our company, and it's at $16 a month. Let's take a look at Zoom's version of the HIPAA compliant, $200 per month. All right, so it's a huge upgrade. It comes with 10 hosts, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of different goodies. We're not on this platform, we're on base Zoom, but just wanted you to be aware of those two differences. If you're hosting a public meeting, certainly take safeguards as best as possible to ensure that you're not letting in individuals that could sidetrack or compromise your business or not-for-profit organization. So that's all on that. George from the Chamber Alliance of Rockland, he says in the chat is the meeting's only limited to invitees and only the host controls that will allow you to cut down the possibility of people coming in and spamming. So yeah, and there are some controls where you can create a waiting room and you can let people in one at a time. That's a good initial safeguard for that. So thank you, George, from the Chamber Alliance of Rockland. Okay, so that should be it for the time being. I'll be posting this video onto the Workforce Development Board website, as well as the PowerPoint presentation. At the end of this, there's a whole bunch of resources that we've put together for some of our participating organizations in Rockland. Our next meeting will be on Friday, April 10th at 12:30. Again, within the PowerPoint presentation, there's a link to instantly join. So feel free to keep that handy and you could pop in. We're usually here about 5 minutes before and we start the meeting as best as possible at 12:30 and get you back out within 45 minutes or less. So it's 1:13. Once again, I want to thank both Debra Thomas and Aidan Hand for their comprehensive presentations. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week at our 4th Small Business Friday Forum. Take care, and remember, we will get through this together.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.